Ladies and gentlemen, if I can get your attention, I would like to tell you that we're very grateful that you would attend this press conference today. We've got the gentleman that has been leading this battle for 12 years, Senator Bob Graham, will be speaking as well. But let me tell you the order of the talk today. I'll make a brief comments after I welcome you, which I'm doing now. Then I will introduce Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts, who joined me last year in a House resolution that we put in to call on the White House to declassify these 28 pages. He and I dropped the same resolution yesterday, but we don't have a bill number because so many bills were introduced. Then we have from the families who have suffered so much pain, Terry Strada, Sylvia Carter, and Adam Scott. After everyone, Abraham, excuse me, thank you. Abraham Scott. And then after they speak, we will then take questions from the press. At that time, please identify who you are and who you're with. First, my brief comments will be that just like the tragedy in France today, no nation can defend itself unless the nation knows the truth, and especially when there's been an attack like 9/11. The families and their pain is something none of us can experience unless we're one of the 9/11 families. So with that, I'm going to introduce Stephen Lynch, then I will come back and introduce Senator Bob Graham. And then the family members will speak, and then you'll have your chance to ask questions. Stephen Lynch and I bonded as friends long before this issue of the 28 pages. I am a conservative Republican from North Carolina. He is more moderate from Massachusetts and Democrat. And we became friends just because I think God intended that we would be friends, quite frankly. So with that, again, Stephen and Thomas Massey, who cannot be with us today, is also on this House resolution calling on the administration to declassify the 28 pages. So I will let Stephen speak now, then I'll come back and introduce Senator Bob Graham. Stephen, come ahead and tell the people why we need to declassify the 28 pages.
Thank you very much, Walter, for that very generous and kind introduction. First of all, I want to thank the 9/11 families for being with us this morning. They are really the reason we are here. And we're introducing our measure resolution from last year to require the declassification of the 28-page section of the Joint Congressional Inquiry into the intelligence activities before and after the terrorist attacks of September of 2001. Congressman Jones and I jointly introduced this resolution back in December of 2013, and we are pleased to do so again. I'd like to begin by thanking my colleague, Walter Jones, for his leadership on this issue. He has been relentless, which I think is what it's going to take to get these pages declassified. And he's really provided, I think, a dignified and well thought out approach for the reasons behind our request. I'd also like to acknowledge Senator Bob Graham, again, who was the catalyst for this effort, and really, I think, before anyone, recognized the rightness of disclosing these 28 pages when the joint report first came out, and making these public. There are three basic reasons for our request here. First is that transparency is a good aspect of democracy, and that as Walter indicated, having an informed public from the beginning of our government has always been a major priority and an asset of democracy. And we believe that transparency in this case will not only be the right thing to do, but secondly, it will provide justice for a lot of the families, for all of the families who are affected directly. We all we all suffered a deep and personal, profound loss. But these families, who will speak later on at this conference, will speak to the true pain that they feel each and every day. And they are deserving of the truth, just as the American people are. And thirdly, I think after reading the 28 pages, and the pages speak for themselves, I think that members of Congress and American citizens everywhere will be better informed in terms of our national security posture and the threats that are out there. I think they will be better informed, more thoughtful, more comprehensive, and we will understand more fully the nature of the threat that's out there. And I think that again is one more reason to make sure that these reports are made public. So with that, I just want to say again that we are deeply grateful that Senator Graham was able to join us today. He has provided much impetus for this investigation. He has kept this going. As I said before, he was the first one to recognize the wrongfulness in terms of concealing this from the American public. And it's one important point I want to emphasize is that we frequently see reports. I'm in the process of reading a 6,700-page report on the CIA enhanced interrogation process. And it is typical to see a redaction where a couple lines or a name of a country, name of a CIA agent might be deleted for the purpose of protecting that individual. But in this case, this report, this joint report, 28 pages were excised, a whole section of it. That's extraordinary. And it points to the need for disclosing that information in order to make sure that that report is fully understood. I think Walter and I and the Senator agree that this is very important information to have out there, and that we jointly feel, as well as Representative Massey, that this presents no risk to sources or individuals in terms of disclosing this for our intelligence apparatus. We feel that, on the other hand, this will make us stronger, make our country stronger and better prepared and better informed if we disclose this information as we rightly should. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Walter Jones so that he can introduce the esteemed senator. Thank you.
I want to, after I make my comments about Senator Graham, I'd like for Terry Strada to come first, Sylvia Carter to come second, and then Abraham third. And then if you would stand here, or if you need to sit, so that when we get to the questions. I want to remind you that after this report came out, it was the Bush administration that determined that these 28 pages should be classified. And as Stephen said, we've read the report, and there's nothing about national security. I'm going to let Senator Graham speak in detail about his concern about why this has not been released. Let me remind you that Senator Bob Graham spent 18 years in the Senate. He's a man that has the nation's respect for the type of person that he is. He and Senator Shelby released the joint inquiry report into 9/11 in December of 2002. Again, the report goes to the White House for final review. The White House at that time, under George Bush, decided that the 28 pages should be classified. The families have suffered long enough. The American people have been denied the truth long enough. It is time for the truth to come out. It is time for the truth to come out. As Stephen said, I want to thank Senator Bob Graham. He had a daughter who was sworn in to the United States House of Representatives yesterday, and congratulations on that, Senator. With that, a man who has driven this issue since 2002. I'm not even going to begin to tell you what he has done, from court action to other types of action, because he knows that the truth will set America free. So with that, I introduce the esteemed Senator from Florida, Bob Graham. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I too want to thank Walter and Steve, Congressmen Jones and Lynch, for their leadership in bringing this matter to the attention of the Congress. I want to thank the family members who have been, without question, the most influential force in all of the changes that have occurred as a result of 9/11, and will be the most significant force in terms of convincing the President that it is time to give the American people the truth. Needless to say, my remarks that I will spouse this morning are considerably different than they would have been but for events in Paris this morning, which in my judgment bring this matter into its proper focus. But first, a little background. After 9/11, it was clear that the Congress was going to be called upon to conduct some form of an inquiry as to what happened. The decision by the leadership was to combine the intelligence committees of the House and the Senate into a single body, for the first time in the history of the Congress that had occurred, for purposes of carrying out this inquiry. The inquiry took the year of 2002. It included interviewing hundreds of witnesses, tens of thousands of pages of documentation, leading up to an over 800-page report, which was submitted in December of 2002. Some 6 months later, the declassified version emerged, and we were shocked to see that an important chapter in the report had not been redacted. That is, as Congressman Lynch and Congressman Jones said, a word or a phrase here or there, but an entire chapter. Now, since that chapter continues to be classified, none of us can talk about it in public. But I think it's fair to say that it is a central chapter in terms of understanding who was the support network that allowed 9/11 to occur. When we saw that this chapter had been eliminated, there was an immediate outcry. Senator Dick Shelby, Republican from Alabama, who had been the chair and was at that time the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I issued a statement to the effect that we were intimately familiar with that chapter. We considered it to have no adverse effect on national security, that it was important to the overall understanding of 9/11, and it should be released. We have subsequently been joined in that by others who were involved, including the chairman of the House Committee, Porter Goss, who wishes that he could have been here today to participate as well. And subsequently, the Citizen 9/11 Commission's two co-chairs, Lee Hamilton and Tom Kane, have also advocated that these 28 pages be released. Shortly after the declassification process ended, a letter was prepared, signed by almost half of the membership of the United States Senate, bipartisan, including Senator Joe Biden of Delaware, Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts, and Senator Clinton of New York, all calling upon President Bush to release the 28 pages. What have been the consequences of this refusal to release the pages? And let me say, while the 28 pages are maybe the most important and the most prominent, They are by no means the only example of where information that is important to understanding the full extent of 9/11 have also been withheld from the American people. So the comments I'm going to make are specifically about the 28 pages, but more generally about a pattern of cover-up that for 12 years has kept the American people from a full understanding of the most horrific attack against the United States in its history. The consequences, in my judgment, are three. One is a denial of the truth. A core question in 9/11 is, did these 19 people act alone, or did they have a network of support which facilitated their ability to carry out a very complex plot? No one who has looked closely at the facts, including the individuals that I just named, have come to a conclusion other than that it is highly improbable that the 19 people could have acted alone. Yet the official position of the United States government has been that they did act alone, and that there is no necessity for further inquiry into the question of whether there was a support network. We're now in the 150th anniversary of the American Civil War, and we've had a national history classroom over the past few years as incidents that were consistent with a date in the current era coincided with a date during that war. One of the pieces of information that we have learned, at least I have learned, is that President Lincoln had a policy throughout the war that every message that came into the government, specifically into the State Department, was a matter of public record on a daily basis. His feeling was that if the support of the American people were going to be maintained in a war which was increasingly bloody, many loss of lives and loss of treasure, that it took the confidence of the American people that their government was conducting itself in an appropriate manner, and that the key to that confidence was disclosure. I wish we applied the Lincoln-esque standard to what happened in 9/11. The second issue is the issue of justice. Some 3,000 members of the families who were lost on 9/11 have been trying for years to get justice through our system for the losses that they have suffered. The position of the United States government has been to protect Saudi Arabia. At virtually every step of the judicial process, when the United States government was called upon to take a position, it has been a position adverse to the interest of the United States citizens seeking justice and protective of the government which, in my judgment, was the most responsible for that network of support. Again, an example from the Civil War. The British had signed a neutrality agreement with the United States that they would not be involved in the Civil War. It was found out subsequently that, in fact, their shipyards had been building military vessels for the Confederacy. After the war ended, the United States didn't forget. It did not walk away from the negative effects of Britain's perfidy. Rather, it pursued it and finally secured a recognition of what the British had done and some compensation for the consequences of their action. What a difference between the way this country saw itself as a proudful defender of justice for its citizens and what we are experiencing today. The third consequence is the issue of national security. And frequently those who have defended non-disclosure have said this cannot be made available to the American people because it will be adverse to our national security. It will affect methods and sources of information or other information that is inappropriate to be made publicly known. as the two congressmen have just said, they both read the report, not 12 years ago as I participated in writing the report, but they have read it recently and have both come to the same conclusion that we did a dozen years ago, that there is no threat to national security in disclosure. I'm going to make the case today that there's a threat to national security by non-disclosure, and we saw another chapter of that today in Paris. Here are some facts. The Saudis know what they did. They are not persons who are unaware of the consequences of their government's actions. Second, the Saudis know that we know what they did. Somebody in the federal government has read these 28 pages. Someone in the federal government has read all the other documents that have been covered up so far. And the Saudis know that. What would you think the Saudis' position would be if they knew what they had done, they knew what the United States knew what they had done, and they also observed that the United States had taken a position of either passivity or actual hostility to letting those facts be known? What would the Saudi government do in that circumstance, which is precisely where they have been for more than a decade? Well, one, they have continued, maybe accelerated their support for one of the most extreme forms of Islam, Wahhabism, throughout the world, particularly in the Middle East. And second, they have supported their religious fervor with financial and other forms of support of the institutions which were going to carry out those extreme forms of Islam. Those institutions have included mosques, madrasas, and military. Al-Qaeda was a creature of Saudi Arabia. The regional groups, such as Al-Shabaab, have been largely creatures of Saudi Arabia. And now ISIS is the latest creature. Yes, I hope and I trust that the United States will crush ISIS. But if we think that is the definition of victory, we are being very naive. ISIS is a consequence, not a cause. It is a consequence of the spread of extremism, largely by Saudi Arabia. And if it is crushed, there will be another institution established, financed, supported to carry on the cause. So the consequences of our passivity to Saudi Arabia have been that we have tolerated this succession of institutions, violent, extreme, extremely hurtful to the region of the Middle East, and a threat to the world, as we saw this morning in Paris. So I conclude by saying this is a very important issue. It may seem stale to some, but it is as current as the headlines that we will read today. It is an issue that goes to the core of the United States contract with its people, that the people would give the government the credibility and support to govern. The government would give the people the information upon which they can make good judgments as to the appropriateness of governmental action. It's as fundamental as justice to our people who have suffered by this evil union of extremism and a very powerful nation state. And it is the security of the people of the United States of America. So I again thank the congressmen for their leadership. I hope that they will soon be joined by a rising tide of other members of Congress who recognize the importance of this issue. And then finally, that the President of the United States will declare that he is going to adopt the Lincoln-esque standard of full disclosure and rely on the intelligence and judgment and patriotism of the American people to decide what the appropriate course of action should be. Thank you.